Welcome back to Fantasy Fights. This time Joe Louis goes up against Joe Frazier. Louis dominated the division from 1937 to 1949. Frazier was a champion from 1970 to 73.
Scores with combinations of left stance going straight up. North is about to drop. North is
Before we look at Louis and Frazier, please hit the like button and subscribe. Now let's take a look at the measurables between the two champions that dominated boxing history. They were both very popular. You can see Louis has a little bit better record, 68-3. Frazier 32-4. Very impressive. Close to the same height. Close to the same weight, 198 to 205. Louis has a little advantage in reach. And their prime years, pretty similar. 1936 to 41, that's when Louis had to go into the war. And Frazier 67 to 71. Of course, 71 was the famous Frazier-Ali fight. Let's take a look at Joe Louis in action. This is against Billy Conn in 1941. This is a very close fight. Conn was leading most of the fight. Now, Conn did not fight anything like Joe Frazier, but I wanted to show you Joe Louis's style in his prime. Outside of the Max Schmeling fight in 36, this was probably the closest anybody came to really beating him, because he was ahead on points up until late in the fight. You can see Louis's combinations, quick hands, and they're going after it. Conn is not backing down, even though he's a light heavyweight. Tremendous skills Billy Conn has from Pittsburgh. They came back in 46 and fought again, but Conn was not the same fighter, and Louis was not the same fighter, and I believe it lasted 8 rounds. Louis knocked him out. And you can see Louis is starting to have his way. This is typical of a Joe Louis fight. He measures his opponent, very calculating, doesn't take a lot of risk. He did go down a few times in his fights, more than a lot of people realize, but he bounced back up. If people go down and then they bounce up, it's not that big a deal. And there you can see the knockout of Conn. This is another fight. This is 1940, Louis and Gotti. Now, this is an indication to me of the way the Frazier fight would go. You can see the style. He comes in, he's swarming, much like Frazier. And this fight goes 15 rounds, and on one scorecard, the judge had Gotti winning the fight 11-4. So this was a very similar to the way the Frazier fight would look. Now, on the other two scorecards, Louis dominated. So usually don't have that on a fight where you see the judges disagree that much. But you can see Gotti is going to try to get inside. He's low, much like Frazier is going to be. And then he gets inside, and he wants to swarm. He wants to make it just a brawl. And Frazier's much bigger than Gotti. And there you can see him going toe-to-toe. Great fight. Now let's take a look at Joe Frazier in action. This is his 1968 fight against Buster Mathis for the New York State World Championship heavyweight title. They were both undefeated coming into this fight. They had fought in the Olympics in 64 trials. Mathis had won that fight, but was unable to represent the United States, and Frazier won the gold medal in 64. Notice his swarming style coming in there. Relentless. This is late in the fight. Frazier lost the early rounds, which is very typical of a Joe Frazier fight. But as the fight goes on, he's a beast. He just keeps coming. And that's his style. Mathis collapses.
That one hurt. So did that. And Muhammad Ali staggers. Time is important here.
take a good look at Joe Louis, one of the most dominant figures in heavyweight history. Dominated the division like no other heavyweight, defended his title 25 times over a 12-year period. Some of the key opponents, Billy Conn, that I showed you the video of, in 47 when he was past his prime. He defeated Jersey Joe Walcott in a controversial fight. Max Schmeling in 38, the revenge match from the 36 fight. And, of course, when he won the title in 37 against Jimmy Braddock. But, the opponents are too numerous to name here. Let's look at his strengths. He had a tremendous jab, considered to have the fastest hands in the heavyweight division throughout his career. He was a solid defensive fighter, contrary to some people's beliefs, and he had devastating power. He could take you out. Weaknesses, questionable chin. He went down quite a few times, but I think his chin was fine. But some people would mark that as a weakness. And he did struggle against elusive fighters like Billy Conn, people that were moving, jabbing, and sticking, but he usually caught up with them. Let's take a look at his opponent, Joe Frazier, who fought in one of the more popular periods in heavyweight history, if not the most popular. And one of the reasons it was very popular was the competition was very fierce. Frazier, of course, is best known for his 71 victory over Muhammad Ali, the 15-round decision. His 1969 fight against Jerry Corey was the fight of the year. 68, he defeated Oscar Bonavena for a second time. And, of course, he won the recognition worldwide in 70, defeating Jimmy Ellis in Madison Square Garden. His strengths, incredible conditioning, awesome left hook, one of the best in heavyweight history. He applied constant pressure throughout the fight, and he had excellent head movement. He was much harder to hit than you might think. Weaknesses, he did not have a real strong jab. He relied heavily on his movement. And he did have the inability to adapt to opponents. Didn't have a whole lot of different alternatives that he could go to and as far as his style is concerned. He was going to fight one way, and that's it. Let me, before we get started on the comparison chart, explain it. If you win the comparison chart, that does not necessarily think that you're going to win the fight. It's just a comparison chart. If the numbers are lopsided, yes, I think you're going to dominate the fight. But if they're close, you could be really strong in one area. I'll use George Foreman as an example, his KO power. I mean, he could lose a lot of areas on the comparison chart, but win the fight because he's so dominant in one area. Boxing ability. You could lose a lot of areas in boxing ability, but you're so dominant in that one area that if the chart's pretty close, you could win the fight. So hopefully that explains the chart. I haven't done that in any of the other fights, so I wanted to make sure I did that in this one. All right, let's take a look at the comparison chart. Looking at hand speed, both of them had lightning hands. Louis was known for his hands, but Frazier was fast too. Boxing ability, no comparison. Louis is a better boxer there. He has the advantage. KO power, both of them packed KO power. Chins, both of them had outstanding chin. Bonavena put Frazier down twice. He had a good chin. Size, very similar. No difference there. Defense, Frazier moved his head quite a bit. He was hard to target to hit, and Louis was a good defensive fighter, and both of them were well conditioned. Adaptability, Joe Louis has to have the advantage there. There's no question. Foot speed, if I was leaning one way or the other, I'd definitely go with Louis in that area, but I'm not going to give him an advantage. Strength, both of them were very strong fighters, both of them tough inside. Jab, no comparison. Louis had one of the better jabs in heavyweight history. Cuts, neither one of them were susceptible to cuts. Reach, it's just not that great a difference. I'm not going to give Louis an advantage there. Body attack, Frazier was one of the best body attack fighters in heavyweight history. Looking at the outcome, it's 3-1 Joe Louis, and that's not significant. All right, let's take a look at the keys to the fight. This is the way I perceive the fight and how it would go. Frazier prefers to fight in close quarters. Joe Louis would rather keep his distance. From a distance, Louis has a big advantage because of his jab. The question is, how much punishment will Frazier have to endure in order to pressure Louis? As we know, styles make fights. Can Lewis slow down the advances of Frazier enough to control the fight? Always a factor in facing Frazier is the left hook. Can Lewis avoid being jacked by the left hook? Is Frazier's body attack enough to slow down Lewis so he'll slug things out? Now let's take a look at the fight results. Frazier is notorious as a slow starter, with Lewis winning the early rounds. Frazier begins to work the body and turns the fight into a brawl entering round 3. Lewis has trouble keeping his distance and is fighting in close quarters, which is an advantage for Frazier. After hurting Frazier in the second round, Smokin' Joe recovers and floors Lewis in the 9th round with his left hook. Lewis is shaky as he gains his feet, but the bell rings. Both fighters have swollen eyes. It's just a war, and Frazier is given a close split decision victory. Now I'm going to explain the results. The fight is extremely hard to call because if Lewis can control the fight with his jab, he wins. If Frazier is able to smother Lewis in close quarters, the fight swings to his advantage. One of the things is Frazier fought a much more talented group of opponents in his career, which gives him a slight edge in the fight. Frazier defeated Jerry Corey, Muhammad Ali, Oscar Bonavena, Jimmy Ellis, and Joe Bugner. The main troubles he had came against boxers like Ali and powerful punchers like George Foreman. Matter of fact, those are the only 2 fighters to ever defeat Joe Frazier. Lewis struggled against boxers and swarmers like Gotti. In the first fight, one judge scored it 10-5 in favor of Gotti. The 2 other scores were 10-4-1 and 10-5. Please let me know your comments on who you think won the fight. If you agree with me, disagree, it's fine, one way or the other. But I'd love to hear from you. Please hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.